Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Africam show. It's Tuesday, it's second day of the week. I hope it's going fast enough, or maybe you need a little bit of time to do all your work like me. My name is Taylor McCurdy. I'll be hosting you for the next little while as we watch all sorts of fold right in front of our eyes with these live and interactive cameras. Yep, you heard me. I said it. So you can ask me any kind of question you like. But right now, some of you may be able to recognize this camera. And for those of you who are watching for the first time or are still familiarizing yourself as to where all the cameras are located, this one is at Old Donyo, which is in Kenya, in a really nice part of the area. But it's crazy to just over a couple of months how it has dried up when Kenya has had so many. In fact, since December last year, it just pretty much hasn't stopped raining. So it's good to see that the landscape is returning to what it normally looks like. Penny Burns, you said good morning, and then you've asked what kind of birds are on them. I'm assuming you're talking about the giraffe. So the birds that are actually sitting on the giraffe, you can see them bouncing around, clinging for their lives. There's one on the giraffe that's standing sort of in the middle on its left-hand part of its neck. Those are called oxpeckers. We get two different species of oxpeckers. We have red-billed oxpeckers and yellow-billed oxpeckers. And they pretty much feed on the parasites that live on animals. So they're not just restricted to giraffe. So they'll feed on ticks, on mite, and then either tick and mite larvae. And that's big on blood. So they're not actually after the insects themselves. They're after the blood. So what we'll also see with the oxpeckers is that if there's a scab or a wound, oh, they're the first ones to kind of go in and pull off that scab and then be able to drink the blood. Then there's also got helmeted guinea on the left, and I think it's a bit hard to see even when I bring my face to the computer. I think those might all be wattled starlings just to the left. It looks like a couple of them. I think there's some as well. There's all sorts of things. And of course, zebras on the way in. We've got Bowl of Kit. Hello. Great to see you. You've said that you are enjoying kombucha. That's Jack de Boer. Welcome back. Nice to hear from you. And Zygote, namaste to you too. It's always nice to see your name. Casper's Third Ghost. You said good morning to everybody from a lovely, sunny, mild Milwaukee. Why can't I ever say that word? And you've got hot coffee. Gosh, coffee is the last thing that I could think of. We've been having interesting weather in Hoedspruit, which is the safari capital of South Africa. Yesterday, it was, how hot was it? Like 37 degrees Celsius. It was ridiculous. So that's like, I think that's well over 100 Fahrenheit. So that was exciting. And now we've got gale force winds. But for those of you that aren't experiencing very pleasant weather that is happening over the US at the moment, I'm hoping that you're all safe and you've managed to seek shelter over this sort of terrible time. April Owl, you're also here today, and you've got a nice tea. Fantastic. And then we've got Dear NC. You've got your coffee. Fabulous. I don't have anything. I should have a bottle of water next to me, but I've misplaced it somewhere. And I don't think I'll be able to find it. This is the joy, and I don't think I'm the only one out there. I lose everything about 12 times a day. I spend more time walking around trying to find things that are put down. But anyways, so what we're going to start to see around this particular waterhole, look at that, or any of the waterholes, for the matter of fact, especially coming to Southern Africa, is how dry it is, and just how many animals are going to start to congregate. My goodness, I cannot actually speak today. That frustration. Congregate around the same waterhole, which is what we're seeing at the moment. It's not a very big area to drink from, but the water is clean. It is being pumped, so it's going to be preferred by a lot of the animals. We've got the giraffe. We've also got zebra and the guinea fowl and different bird species. I'm surprised the impala haven't rocked up too, because they like to get into the thick of it as well. Aussie Jan, I was wondering where you are. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see so many of you. I'm just trying to see. There we go. We've got W. Bouchard. You say good morning from Toronto. Wonderful. I hope everything is beautiful on that side of the world. Isn't this great though? So it tends to get quite dark quite quickly in Kenya because of their proximity to the equator. It obviously doesn't help when you've got a big bank of clouds coming through too. But Kenya is 1 hour ahead of like South African time. So theoretically it's after 5. Come on, another giraffe. The zebras aren't actually spending much time there, which is interesting. They're just doing a quick drink and going. The giraffe are a little bit more cautious about coming down to the water's edge today. But there's so many different things that could startle them, especially if they pick up the scent of a predator in the area. Then they're not going to be so happy. And then Jack de Boer, you've just said you're posing this as a statement to everybody, so I'll read it for you. Jack was saying, do you know that the oxpeckers also live on the back of buffaloes, elephants, hippos, rhinos, even warthogs? That's one of the funniest things to see is 5 or 6 oxpeckers on top of a warthog. The oxpeckers are obviously not enormous birds, but they're a lot bigger than you think they are, especially when you see them up close and when you're on top of a warthog. That's always quite entertaining. You realize this. Then zygotes head elephants. I've yet to see an oxpecker on an elephant. I'm sure someone somewhere in Africa has seen one before, but with elephants having trunks, I think that's a big thing. They can swat a lot of animals away. And the areas that the oxpeckers are going to want to get into are places that an elephant's trunk can reach. So think about it. In the ears, around, the ears would be a big one, on the chest of elephants, and between their legs, underneath the backs of their tails. But they also don't have a high tick presence on their bodies in comparison to a lot of other animals that have got more hair. But I think to do with the trunk as well. Imagine just being grabbed by an elephant trunk and thrown away. But there are other birds that will utilize elephants, not in the same way to necessarily feed off them, but as you know, a lot of animals will do this, where you'll get mammal species moving through grasses, and for the most part, it's quite often birds then follow those animals around. And there's the impala ram that I was telling you about. And then those birds will then follow those mammals around, and as they move, they disturb insects. But one of my favorite things is just seeing the different bird species in East Africa specifically. Not so much this environment in Aldonyo. It's very different to say the big open grasslands of the Serengeti and the Masai Mara. But there's not many roosters for something like a lilac-breasted roller or fork-tailed drongo. So quite what we see is them sitting on the backs of animals, using them as a post, moving with them. They fly down, catch an insect, eat it. Not having enough trees around in the open areas to basically perch on. You don't want to stay on the ground the whole time. Ambasio, you're here. Welcome, welcome. And then W. Boucher asking what season South Africa is in at the moment, or just Africa in general. We are in spring at the moment. So spring starts on the 1st of September. Although where I'm from, in the northeastern parts of South Africa, it feels like we're straight into summer. We don't really have the spring. We kind of have a winter for like 2 months, and then it starts to warm up and we get the wind. And then after the wind, it just goes straight into summer. So I feel like for 6 months of the year, we're in the summer months. Again, just specifically where I live. It's crazy how hot it is. And we're still waiting for the rain to arrive. But we've been having some big cloud banks coming in. No rain just yet, but I suspect it's on its way. I was saying today I'd be concerned if we were just having clear skies and no present clouds at all. But we're actually waiting for rain to come from the northeast coast of South Africa. Basically, big tropical cyclones, I suppose you can call them, that form west of Australia, and they make their way towards Madagascar. And once they pass Madagascar, they normally make landfall in Mozambique. We get big rain coming into this time of the year. So hopefully we'll get one of those soon, because we're very dry at the moment. It just amazes me. I wish I had a screenshot of what this place looked like just a couple of months ago. It dried out so fast. So we're going to head to a different country now. We're going to go across to Botswana, as you can see. We're in an area that's called Hyena Pan, but essentially it is in the Kwai Private Reserve. So some of you have probably not heard of Kwai Private Reserve in Botswana, but you maybe have heard of Moni Game Reserve, which is quite a famous area. And Kwai Private Reserve is literally, I'm just trying to think, just south of, or not even south, probably southwest of Moremi Game Reserve. I was actually just in Kwai Private Reserve, when was it? At the end of September. It was fantastic. It was really nice. Also looking so these trees that you can sort of see here, most of them look like they are mapani trees. They've obviously all lost their leaves now, but it's a very good environment. It's diverse, Kwai. It's got many different zones, if I can call them that. So you have the mapani belts, and there's not normally much that grows around the mapanis. They make for beautiful trees. Some of them get really big, but there are a lot more stunted mapani trees around. And then you can head into the areas where the channels run around, and there's lots of lush greenery. There's also sort of wetland systems, and then sort of semi-open plains and sort of wooded tree areas too. So it's quite interesting. You can very easily head to a place like this for 5 or 6 days and explore, sort of new areas all the time. But this waterhole is normally quite busy. Not today. We might be a bit early. Maybe the animals have decided that they're only going to drink a little bit later. We're just having a little look around. You can hear some starlings making a bit of noise. Sounds like starlings. They could be the greater blue-eared starlings or white-fronted bee-eaters. If you ever hear the calls of the two, they sound almost identical. And then just quickly touching back on the warthogs and the oxpeckers. Penny, you said that you bet warthogs have lots of ticks, especially being lower to the ground. They do tend to pick up a lot of ticks, but because they don't have lots of hair, they've got coarse hair on their bodies, but it doesn't cover them entirely. It makes it difficult, so the ticks are quite often exposed. Warthogs also like to wallow around in mud. So that can tend to help remove the parasites by suffocating them. They also scratch around on things and dislodge those ticks. But especially in their warthog burrows, Penny, which is why they tend to change them, is because of the parasite buildup. And imagine how many tick mites and things must drop off and then live in those burrows. Oh, Bridget McKinney. Hello. Welcome. And then Jack De Boer, you've asked if it's true that drongos can mimic the other animal sounds in real life. They absolutely can. I have first-hand experience of this. So obviously we know drongos are phenomenal birds. They're highly intelligent and they like to boss around a lot of other birds. They're even so brave they sit on the tops of eagles' heads just to prove a point. So with the drongos, they mimic many other bird species. Pearl-spotted owlets is one of the greatest ones they do. I've heard one trying to mimic a fish eagle, but one of the greatest moments of my life, never heard it again, was many years ago, more than 10 years ago, when I'd first started out guiding, and I had a sighting with a herd of elephants, and then there were 2 black-backed jackals sort of running around just on the outskirts. And then there was a fork-tailed drongo, because they're everywhere. And the fork-tailed drongo started mobbing the jackals. So it was flying down and just pecking them on top of their heads. So the they're now running through the elephant. So the elephant's also having a complete meltdown. And this fork-tailed drongo was mimicking the call of a jackal. It wasn't doing it very well, but it was trying its absolute best. And jackals make a particularly great noise. They don't bark like dogs. They don't quite howl. It's a very high-pitched, whiny noise. But it was just amazing to hear. And this fork-tailed drongo continued doing it after it chased the jackals away. It continued calling like a jackal. Um, they also will make alarm calls that, for example, I think the famous one that everyone knows is one of the David Attenborough um, documentaries. What was it called? Africa. And I think there's an episode about the Kalahari with them mimicking the alarm calls of meerkats. But that's quite sneaky because they do that for a very different purpose. They're actually just trying to get the meerkats to stop whatever they're doing once they've dug up some prey and run away, and then they can come in and swoop up the goods. Very clever strategy, but if you keep crying wolf, then they're not going to listen to you. They might have to move on to a new colony every now and then. So I'm just looking at, I can't, there's obviously quite a bit of water around. I was just looking to see if it looks like any elephants have been in here already. Probably throughout the day would elephants come and go. And I think what we're going to do is, while we wait for some action, because I'm sure we're going to see we have to see something around the water's edge here. Let's go to town. So we're going to head back to South Africa and into Madikwe Game Reserve. Another very special area, and Madikwe Game Reserve actually just sits south of Botswana. So if you stand on the water, there's a river system, and then pretty much just north of that is Botswana. So we are not too far away. Just the Kwai Private Reserve and the Delta Moremi are quite far north in Botswana. Just want to see. There we go. Sorry, we had the camera freeze. In the distance, you might be able to see the odd elephant just in the tree line. You can see one sort of left-hand screen just behind all those sickle bush. This elephant must have already come down for a drink and is now just slowly feeding into the distance. But as you can see, there's really not much around. Most of the trees have lost their leaves, although a few of them in the last couple of weeks are starting to gain new leaves in preparation for the rains. But, depending on how many animals you have in an area, those leaves will be browed on first. So if there's smaller trees like these sickle bush that we see around here, then a lot of different animals can feed on them. And those leaves are going to disappear quickly, rather than if they're nice and tall, which limits the animals that can feed. There's another one. That elephant at least is facing the right direction, so maybe it'll come back towards. My goodness, look at this on the left. You can barely see them. It's hard to believe that there is an entire herd just moving through the thickets. They are blending in very well. And see how popular this waterhole is too, by looking at all the elephant dung that's sort of towards the bottom of the screen. For the most part, that's just elephants constantly coming through here every single day to drink, cool themselves off, and then head back into the tree line where they'll carry on feeding. You can just even see on the opposing hills how barren it is. Normally the vegetation is just, if you haven't been to Madikwe before, if you don't know too much about it, it's also an arid area. So it's not like East Africa, for an example. Soils are quite fertile. It's difficult for animals to live here. This is also a closed ecosystem reserve, but it's huge. 75,000 hectares. I'd say maybe like 170,000 acres, somewhere around. It's a big piece. And there are big plans to join Madikwe Game Reserve with the Pilanesberg National Park, which is just outside of Johannesburg. And that would be phenomenal if they can eventually create a corridor for those animals and that will just allow them to move freely and explore different areas, because the vegetation type and soil profiles towards, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my brain? Towards the Pilanesberg is, in areas it's a lot better, but it's tricky the further north you come up to the border. And there we go, W. Bouchard. I think that might answer your questions. Why is this reserve so rocky? It's just a different type of substrate that occurs here. It looks like that was a warthog. So it's a lot more mountainous. Oh, look, a grain. So very, very mountainous. You might find that some of these areas have actually been opened up. So a lot of these reserves that don't have good grazing, and Madikwe is one of them. They'll normally have some kind of peace project where they'll move some of the encroaching and not necessarily invasive. We do get a lot of encroaching endemic species of plants, for example, like sicklebush, by removing that and then trying to open up spaces to allow grass to grow. So that's definitely one of the reasons. And then Penny, you said that you love elephants. Absolutely, me too. I also love them. I can sit and watch all day long. I am missing them because I haven't elephants for. Wow! Hi, safari goers. There's unknown that we are watching the animals too from a distance. It is about safari time at the moment, so we might see a veer every now and then. Trying to work out what that elephant has on its. You can see under its tail, it looks quite white. So I don't know if it's the remnants of some of this lighter soil that's been tossed over it, or if it is something else. But I'm looking at these two elephants, and you can see how, so that prominent backbone does stick out quite a bit, looking around their hips. And I can also see every now and then, depending on the angle, you can almost see the hips starting to show. And we do this with elephants, we see it with warthogs, we see it with kudu, hippos, buffalo. During these harsh times of the year, they lose quite a bit of condition. So you might find that even some of these closed ecosystem reserves are actually supplement feeding to be able to assist the animals. That might be in the form of salt licks, so mineral blocks, or they could be putting a not necessarily lucerne, but another type of rough, maybe something like ote or teff, or some kind of grass species. We normally feed it something like aerograsses. Sorry, everybody. It looks like we had some problems at the camera at Tau, so we're just moving on. UK David, you said that there were cheetah this morning at Tau. That's fascinating. We'll keep an eye out for them. But now we're in another part of South Africa. We've moved all the way to the northeastern corner right now, and we are at Tembe Elephant Park. A beautiful, lush, a lot different from what we've been seeing. But the KwaZulu-Natal province does receive a lot of rain. And like I said, with those big tropical cyclones that form over the ocean, normally this is one of the areas that is impacted first. But where the impala are standing, that was once underwater. There are quite deep holes that have been dug now. And then some more shallower ones. These are just wallows that the elephants and warthogs have sort of dug out a little bit. We might even find maybe, look, especially this one on the right, maybe the elephants were even trying to dig there for fresh water too. And that's why they become so deep. Not good though, because even if you just get a little bit of rain, imagine if something falls in there like an impala, it might struggle to get out. Let's always be careful. So even though the elephants are so helpful and they'll dig holes and find water, and you get a lot of other animals that will utilize that water too, it could end up being a death trap, especially when mud is involved. Normally, this is the area that we see loads of elephants, and elephants with big tusks too. But not this afternoon. Actually, let me see. Let me open my weather app and let's see what actually is happening on the coast. So it looks like this province, KwaZulu-Natal, so Tembe Elephant Park. I was wondering why it's cloudy. There's a couple of weather systems that are building up on the east coast. So I think that they are being affected by that. Maybe they'll even receive some rain. If this one landfall, quite often they subside before they do, but it's well on its way to Tembe Elephant Park. Interesting. But the impala and lots of other animals will just hang around. You can see how the grass is still quite lush. It is short, but it's easy enough for the impalas to be able to feed on. And why would you not try it, the greenest of green grass? Ah, Kirsten actually just said to me that it is in fact raining in Durban. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You can just see the sun poking its head out now, though. I bet with all the clouds, it'll make for a spectacular sunset this evening. The impala are not going to go too far away from the water. For the most part, they'll spend their days within close proximity of a permanent water source. I mean, this area is fantastic, though. I have not been to this park myself, but I've spent a lot of time watching this camera and chatting about it. But in my books, if I were an animal, it checks a lot of boxes. We've got big source of water. We've got green grazing on the edge. We've also got trees that have got green leaves. But those trees are also going to provide shelter. So if it does start pouring with rain, impalas, they might go underneath the vegetation, but for the most part, they just put themselves on the side, on the opposite side of the wind, so that then the rain doesn't pelt against them, but they can use the tree or the bushes for a bit of shelter. So this is a good area. I'm still yet to see any predators around here, though. There's a more impala at the back. It looks like it. Do see a lot of Inyala around here too, and I'm surprised we haven't seen many bird species. This is always a great place to do a bit of birding. I just see some Egyptian geese in the water, but not much else. Oh, okay, this is interesting. I thought I could hear some weavers. Those are the yellow birds. I could not tell you what weavers those are, though. Maybe southern masked? It's difficult to tell because I can't really see leg color and eye color. But anyways, it's one of the weavers. And in the back, there is a bigger nest, small woven ones that look like Christmas decorations. But there's a slightly bigger nest at the back, and I was told that it's apparently a hyena nest. That's so epic. I haven't sat and watched hadedas grow up for many years now. They are fascinating creatures, although most South Africans despise them. I like them, having them around. They're really interesting to watch. So it's a pity we can't see any of the adults on top. I'm not sure if there are any chicks, but something to keep an eye out for. And then while we watch the birds, I'll get into them now. Kirsten was just saying to me that apparently a leopard was seen on the weekend that had a front paw here at Tembe. That's fabulous. I'm just obviously not watching the cameras all the time, so it's very easy for me to miss them. I'm just demanding. I expect to see them when I'm hosting shows. That's quite cheeky of me. The weavers have started early, though, in KZN. But if there's rain, then there's new life. And why would you not start breeding then? They're such fascinating birds. I'm just trying to see. I think there might be SAST weavers. I'm not sure. Ah, hang on. We're back at Hyena Pan with a hyena. Can you believe it? This is fabulous. Because the hyena is just coming to have a drink, opting to choose the water surrounding this little reservoir. I'm still yet to see how that is thin. Yes, jump in that small pool of water. You know you want to. Clean. It's nice. You'll make it dirty for everybody else. You'll feel good about yourself. So not unusual to see hyenas roaming around during the day. For the most part, as we head into summer, we'll start to see a lot more hyena activity around the water's edge, even during the heat of the day, where they'll come and lie in the water in the mud to help cool themselves off. This hyena looks like it's got a bit of a belly, so it's probably eaten at some point. While I was in quiet, it was quite interesting. I saw a lot of dead elephants, and they were, yeah, it was strange. I'm not sure why they were dying. I asked the guides, they weren't 100% sure. But because it's been so dry, and I'm wondering if some of these elephants are actually dying because of cyanobacteria poisoning or blue-green algae poisoning. We typically see a lot of animals being affected by it, especially at times of the year when it gets dry, and it's been exceptionally dry. So those algal blooms then start to populate at an alarming rate. And if you ingest too much water that has got those algal blooms, and then pretty much any animal can die from it. So I don't know if that's the case. Yes, you want to. Ah, good hyena. There's a great reflection shot. You see, that's so much better. That must be fantastic. Nice clean water to drink. Just dipping your paws in. Yeah, so it was just super interesting to see how many dead elephants were around. I would not say it's something like anthrax, although anthrax can be present in any of these areas, especially when droughts are about. It's a natural forming bacteria that lives in the soil for about 20 years or so. And when animals' immune systems are compromised and anthrax is more present, you can imagine they can be affected badly by them. Um, but there was no talk about that. None of the elephants showed signs that they had typically died from something like anthrax. And that's why it's so important to have hyenas. Funny enough, need to have them around to be able to eat up all this putrid, uh, rotting carcasses that are lying around. That's the best way to get rid of them and clean up bacteria and disease. Thirsty hyena, though, having a good drink. I say this, but it's not the easiest way for them to drink. They drink sort of quite similar to like how dogs drink, just lapping the water back into their mouths. So it can take them a bit of time. Bowl of kittens, you said no one else drinks that hyena pan water after a hyena pool party. You are not wrong. They're also riddled with all sorts of things. Like the last thing I probably want to do is pat a hyena. Not that we should be patting any wild animals, but I just think, can you imagine what their coats? They do swim a lot. They do spend a lot of time in water, and that'll obviously help cleanse them. But whenever you look at them, they always look like they've got shaggy coats. Like they only spend 3% of their day grooming, when, say, some of the big cat species spend a lot more time cleaning up their coats. Well, also looks rather fluffy. It's quite difficult to age hyenas, but I'm also looking at how neat its ears are. I'm wondering if this must be a fairly young adult. It's definitely an adult hyena, but I'm just looking at how shaggy that coat is. Normally, as they get older, let's say around 3 years old, they almost lose that shagginess completely, and their hair goes fairly flat. So I would say that this is probably a young adult. Difficult to age, maybe 18 months, just over at least, maybe even 2 years old, somewhere around there. Okay, this looks like a better wallowing spot, so let's see if the hyena is actually going to do that. You know you want to. Oh, there we go. Come on. You want to sit. I can see you want to sit. Also just keeping an eye out. You never know who else might be coming down to have a drink. The other reason why we might not be so much action around here is perhaps the animals are choosing to spend more time around the channels rather than in the Mopani belt, where there's really not much food left. It doesn't even look like many of the trees have leaves at the base of the tree. Those would also have been scooped up by elephants, and buffalo like to eat them, especially Mopani leaves when they're dry. There's less tannins in them, but they still hold a high crude protein value, which most leaves and grass doesn't hold when they start to dry out. Hyena, make up your mind. Are you trying to go where it's really deep? Do you want to actually swim? Do it. Just sit. Make a decision. If you are going to defecate in that water, then bowl of kittens, no one is going to drink that water. It looks like it is. Really? Of all places. My goodness, that's interesting. And Bridget McKinney, you're quite right. I would smell for a month after touching hyena. I can't believe that the hyena just did that. Have you not learned about latrines yet? I mean, animals will just defecate wherever they want to, but quite often clans of hyenas will make well, one of the ways that they, especially spotted hyenas, would typically be to scent mark through anal pastings, but then, of course, defecate in a similar area we'd call it a latrine. Would also be another indicator to other clans of hyenas that the space is occupied. But when you're younger, you don't always follow the rules. I mean, no animals follow the rules that we give them. Yeah, definitely a young adult. Looks quite small in stature as well. Are we going back again? Are you going to wash your paws in the clean water? This is also such a great area to spend time with hyenas. I think almost every single day we went out on game drives, we saw them, and in and around camp as well. Imagine they like to spend a lot of time around there. Yeah, definitely greater blue starlings that you can hear calling. You can just see them just up to the left. A very thirsty individual, though. I actually don't know how many liters of water a day hyenas need to drink. Again, they don't always have to drink every single day, but if there's water available and close by, they're going to drink. You know, it helps with digestion, definitely helps keep them nice and cool on these hotter days. Clever thinking, though, that this hyena decided to jump up. A bit on the clumsy side. Kaoru, you've said that the naughty for doing what it did. Yeah, you're not wrong. I suppose it's not anything different from a buffalo or an elephant or a hippo defecating and urinating in the water. But the only difference is that obviously predator scatters a lot more bacteria to it than that are herbivores. I'm sure though one one bit of scat from a hyena won't do too much damage to the water. I'd still be more worried about the blue-green algae blooms that we're experiencing at the moment, to be quite honest. That's all natural. Little they can do about it. The only way to sort of reset the water systems is by more water. So rain or floods, that type of thing would help greatly. Okay, we're going to go to Safari Hook and check out an eland. Hello, hello. Beautiful. This eland has got really interesting horns. That's the animal on the right-hand side. I know you're all familiar with the giraffe on the left. But I'm just going to wait till this eland puts its head up so we can have a look at what its horns are doing. Because I don't think they were talking to each other when they were growing. They've gone their separate ways. There's a spider hunting wasp moving around. Yes, eland, you're not supposed to look like that. So both horns are growing in a bizarre like sort of shape. If you have a look at what eland horns typically look like, they were a part of the Tragelaphus tribe, which is the family of spiraled horned antelope, but they no longer are a part of that tribe. They are in their own tribe, and their horns grow pretty straight. They do sort of have twists to them, but not as in the horn twists itself, like in different angles. On the actual horn, there's some grooves within the horn. It's difficult to see. So I don't know what happened. It must be something must have happened, some genetic modification or a anomaly to cause the horns to grow like that. Strange. Very, very strange. Not something I've actually ever seen before in Eland. But we do see it with a lot of other horned antelope species. But one horn trying to be an inyala and the other one that looks like a sable horn. You also see how long it's getting. And it actually nicks on that big hump. I'm going to call it her wither. You can see every time it turns, it switches. At least it's not growing the other way around and growing actually into its skin, because that's, again, something that we see every now and then. And that's not particularly pleasant. Also just constantly checking around to make sure that there's nothing sneaking up. Again, you can just see how dry it is. And then W. Bouchard, you've asked, just going back to the hyena, do hyenas not travel in packs? Why would that one be alone? So it's actually really interesting. That's what everyone tends to believe, but in actual fact, hyenas spend more time alone than they do with other individuals. It also depends on which area. So, in these places where maybe life is a little tough, the clans of hyenas are not getting to 50 or 60 individuals, then when hyena clans are that size, they start taking down quite large animal species. You might find that they're having to fend for them and hunt for themselves. It also has to do a lot with the social hierarchy of hyena. I always like to describe it as, think of Game of Thrones. Everybody's fighting to be on top. And it's very much the same with hyenas, and it's a matriarchal system. So it's females that are fighting for the top position. And just very quickly, a dominant hyena female, if she is the queen of the pack, then her daughters and close relatives are going to be higher ranking than other individuals. So you'll find that lower ranking individuals probably spend more time with them on their own, where the higher ranking individuals might spend some more time by themselves. But remember, only cubs are bound in, and adult animals or females, sorry, that are lactating and have cubs will visit those dens. Otherwise, for the most part, they will be also on their own and away from the den, because those adults actually don't go inside the den at all. They are too big. Hello, Eland. Why are you standing like that? Do you have a problem with your back left leg, or is it just the way you're standing? Are you going to move? I'm was hoping that this Eland will just take one step. Come on, do it. Take one step. No. Okay. Well, I'm not sure. This Eland is quite an interesting individual. Definitely has a horn defect of some kind. But it was really interesting nonetheless. I think this back left leg has got an injury as well, which would explain maybe why she's by herself. But I'm not entirely sure. And to top it off, it also looks like she could be pregnant. Anyways, nature is harsh and wonderful at the same time, but it has been great spending the last 45 minutes with all of you. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your questions and comments. And if you don't know, there is another show that is hosted on Thursday called Wild Moments. So you'll have to check that out then. But until I see you, cheerio.